Dear old professor, thank you once again for accepting our interview. This is already the second time. What about 5 months ago? You, as an elder, once made a plea to the public, which can be seen as a compassionate warning, stating that natural and man-made disasters are imminent. Now, it seems that this is indeed the case, especially with the increase in man-made disasters. This global disaster, like the financial storm, has led some countries to face bankruptcy. Now, everyone is likely to ask a question about this. Scientists, I don't know. Economists don't know either, including some of the government leaders. They all didn't know in advance. So how could an 82-year-old man, a monk, possibly know this?
In fact, this matter is very simple. In the last visit, you mentioned a similar question. In my response, I gave an example. When a child of 2 or 3 years old encounters difficulties, who does he turn to? He definitely goes to his mum and dad. So when I answer you, the ancient people would seek help from their ancestors when encountering difficulties. The ancestors knew, especially our ancestors from China. Look, how much love the ancestors have for their descendants. We must pass on their wisdom and their experience. They really tried their best to figure out how to preserve this thing so that it could be passed down to future generations without deteriorating. This led to the invention of writing and classical Chinese. Classical Chinese literature is meant to convey the wisdom of the ancient people to future generations. Why is that? Language changes. You see, the way we spoke 30 years ago is different from how we speak now. It does change. However, classical Chinese remains unchanged, so he came up with a method to find something that is forever unchanging within it. If this can be passed down, then today we can clearly understand the meaning of Confucius's Analects. So why is it still unclear now? This aspect of Buddhism presents unique obstacles. The obstacles are such that, even if Confucius himself were to explain it to you, you still wouldn't understand. This obstacle is what Buddhism refers to as karmic obstruction. It particularly mentions the threefold obstacles. The first of the three most severe obstacles is arrogance. The second is jealousy, and the third is greed. As long as you have these three things, you will not be able to understand or see clearly, which means you are confused. If you let go of these three things, then you will understand. The more you let go, the more you will see, and that meaning is limitless. Ancient texts are not only Buddhist scriptures, but also the classics of Confucius and Mencius. The Analects and Mencius, when you open them, are boundless in their insights. Each word contains immeasurable meaning. As long as you have a tranquil mind, free from delusions, distinctions, and attachments, you will find that the more you observe, the more flavor it has, and the more you look, the less familiar it becomes, containing endless wisdom and boundless virtue within. Any problem can be solved. So this is the ancient people. Looking to them is indeed the right thing to do.
Let me try to understand your meaning. Are your words addressing the doubts raised by these audience members? Perhaps these foreigners should consider why an elder from the East knows the answer. Maybe this answer is related to the East.
This is related to the transmission of traditional Chinese wisdom. Yes, indeed. This is not mistaken. But Westerners also possess the wisdom of the Eastern people. Why? Our Chinese ancestors have been saying for 5,000 years that the human heart is inherently good. He is human, and he has faith. At the beginning of humanity, human nature is fundamentally good, regardless of whether one is Chinese or foreign, ancient or modern, it is all the same. This goodness, this one word, contains a profound essence. It encompasses the complete wisdom of great perfection, the complete virtue, and the complete capability. Everything is heading towards perfection. What is said in this Buddhist scripture is absolutely correct. This is something that many people do not know. He really doesn't know what he is creating, but he is unaware of his own ignorance. Who truly knows? Only those with a pure heart know. It is about having a pure heart. He does not create karma. By observing from the outside, he becomes clear. When the heart is tainted, it perceives the truth and falsehood. This, respect and misunderstanding, there is respect, and there is good and evil. With benefits and harms, gains and losses, he cannot see them. This is called delusion. This is not called true heart. True heart does not contain these things. If you can remove these delusions, then your true self will be revealed, and everything will become clear and understood. What you see in the works of the ancient people is our self-confidence. So what is good about it? It is not about its invention, nor is it about its creation. Therefore, when we read this, the Analects, I particularly appreciate the two sayings of father and son. Counting is insufficient. To believe in and appreciate the ancient, then one lives a life of father and son. That is insufficient in counting. There is no creation, no invention. Everyone must come up with new things. We must create and invent, or there will be nothing. You see, the heart has a special confidence in the ancient sages and appreciates the things of the ancient people. The wisdom of the ancient people is indeed self-confidence. Self-confidence is complete, like a perfect sphere. What can you add to a sphere? Nothing can be added. When you add a little, the excess means you lack a little, and that won't do either. Therefore, language must be precise. You cannot add a bit or subtract a bit. What creativity do you have left? What inventions are there? Is that complete then? The ancient sages and wise ones are already complete, as you know. It has become one with the ancient, and it has also become one with the scriptures.
People disdain the ancient people.
This is called arrogance. When you have this arrogance, it becomes unmanageable. Why is there no arrogance in your confidence? Once arrogance arises, your confidence becomes invisible.
So, are we to say that newborns are already very close to this state? They are free from arrogance. They also do not possess greed.
There is something, but there is no cause. It brings about lines, so there are shadows, and shadows require clouds. Only then will there be a result. This result refers to its manifestation, but it does not yet have this language. So this is something that is discussed very thoroughly in Buddhism. Arrogance. Regarding my attachment, it is my ego. Arrogance. This is greed and attachment. Ignorance. This Buddhism is called the four major afflictions. This is known as the fundamental afflictions, with greed and attachment, hatred, ignorance, and arrogance, plus an additional suffering. This is China. Indeed, it is China. I am the first to hold a mistaken view. Sai, where there is me, there is political greed, which manifests as selfishness. Yes, so it must be taught why this situation exists. And this law is discussed in depth. This is a discussion of profound philosophy and advanced science regarding how the universe came into being. Where do I come from? Look at this question. How many philosophers and scientists, both ancient and modern, have pondered it? Even theologians have yet to reach a conclusion. But Buddhism.
So this time we particularly want to seek your advice, as scientists have not speculated on this matter, like economists. I don't know. Now even Greenspan is reflecting, while leaders from various countries are caught off guard by this sudden disaster brought by an elderly man from the East. An 82-year-old monk, using traditional wisdom from China, had informed everyone about it 5 months ago. They cannot understand this. What is going on? How could this person know about the disaster?
So you are just a sage from the East, more confused. Indeed, it is attained perfect wisdom. This perfect wisdom. Although ancient Chinese people did not speak about it. Misunderstanding one's true nature, yet having the intention, without the words to express it. What about Buddhism? It is stated very clearly to awaken the mind and see one's true nature. What is a surname? A surname is the essence of the universe, as discussed in this philosophy. The universe is nature. We say that at the beginning of humanity, nature is inherently good. Belief is what enables us in life. It can transform the universe and our existence. It is born from what we believe and how we change. But what this study discusses is the distinction between the capable and the incapable. For example, take a father and son. The son is born of the father, but the father is the father and the son is the son. The act of giving birth and what is born are not the same thing. However, in Buddhism, it is not like that. Buddhism teaches that life and what is born are one, so Ouyang Jingwu's martial arts and Buddhism are not philosophy. In Buddhism, no distinction exists between the subject and object. They are one and not two. Therefore, a great metaphor from Buddhism is well used. It compares to gold. Using gold to make vessels, the essence crystallizes. He compares gold to essence, and this air to phenomena. This is easy to understand. I will make a Buddha statue out of gold. What can be done is whether the statue made of gold is gold itself, or if it is one and not two. He uses this as a metaphor, which is quite appropriate. So where does faith lie? Faith lies in not establishing duality. When duality is not established, belief in the one is not two.
So, Professor, let's continue discussing the issue of the disaster. If I may ask you, this is regarding May 12th of this year. About half a month ago, in response to the major earthquake in Sichuan, you suddenly initiated the Protect the Nation and Cherish Disaster Dharma Assembly in your hometown of Tangkai Town, Anhui Province, marking the 37th anniversary of this event. We know that in Buddhism, this Dharma assembly is specifically for liberating the souls of the deceased. It is very beneficial for those who have passed away. I also analyzed you very carefully. The speeches from that time were actually visible to everyone online. You have mentioned at least 6 times, or even more. You pointed out the need to remind the public about society, to avoid this disaster. Moreover, 3 days before the earthquake, on May 9th, you specifically mentioned how this disaster occurs. How does an earthquake happen? So what can be seen online is that people from all over the world are asking one question. Is this a coincidence?
It can be said that coincidences are also possible. They can be explained. This disaster, in Buddhism, it is indeed true that it is the unwholesome actions of the human heart. This is a phenomenon that arises. There is a profound principle within this. That is, the Buddha teaches that the environment changes according to the mind. It is about perceiving the environment. It starts with the thoughts. In a broader sense, regarding our body, if our thoughts are good, there is no doubt. Will your body feel comfortable and healthy? Will you get sick? If you have worries every day, concerns every day, and are always calculating, then you are likely to get sick. This is when your mind is turning your entire body, and it moves along with your thoughts. In the same way, the external environment we live in is often referred to by the general public as feng shui. The environment we live in, can it bring us joy? It also depends on how your heart perceives the world. So, feng shui practitioners say that the rich benefit from good fortune. The rich have prosperous land, and the rich reside in favorable places. According to this principle, when your heart is kind, even if you live in a place with poor feng shui, after living there for 2 or 3 years, it can improve. This can be expanded to the entire world if the residents of our region have unkind hearts, it may lead to the occurrence of natural disasters. In fact, it is about the resonance of the human heart the Buddha has taught us about human imbalance, which is the cause of earthquakes. Discontent, that is, during an earthquake, one can feel the hatred in the human heart. Resentment, this is the rise in temperature. The temperature of this earth will rise, and this, bath, is the wind. Greed is like a flood. So, if you look at the people living on earth today, in which place is there no greed for power and no greed, anger, and ignorance? This phenomenon has increased many times compared to the past. What is our perspective? 30 years, China speaks of 30 years as a lifetime. You see, that generation spans 3 lifetimes. The differences in greed, anger, and ignorance between people from 30 years ago and those from now, or even 30 years into the future, are quite significant. Looking back 30 years, its speed was even lower, and it wasn't due to a lack of fuel. You see, during our anti-Japanese war, if you push it back to 30 years, well, that's over 60 years ago. Is there compassion in people? He said there is, but it's very rare. Now it's so serious. Although there are qualifications, he sees that others have compassion. During the war, when we were refugee students, we left our homes and parents, but everyone would take care of you when they saw you. Now, no one takes care of you.
At the age of 82, you have traveled all over the world and you have interacted with leaders of various countries, as well as ordinary people. The world you have seen over the years is becoming increasingly filled with honesty. Indeed, disasters are also becoming more and more frequent, more and more. So, when you see the shadows, you will come to understand suffering.
Can this disaster be resolved? According to the wisdom of our ancestors in China and the Buddha, it can definitely be resolved. However, scientists do not think so. They do not believe it. Yes, he doesn't believe that this natural disaster was caused by our actions. He does not acknowledge that.
Then there's really no way out. I find that the principle you mentioned seems to be articulated very directly and thoroughly in the Buddhist scriptures. Confucianism is somewhat close, and both Confucianism and Taoism are quite similar.
It is all mentioned, but he did not speak of the Buddha's completeness. The Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism in China seem to be an experience in disaster prevention. If you truly follow this, our world could become the Pure Land. So, when I give teachings, I have also asked several times whether there is any difference between the Pure Land and our Saha world. Isn't it the same? Why is that world so good? Sakyamuni Buddha introduced us to such a wonderful world. The Buddha said that in that world, good people do not gather in one place. The people in their place are truly good-hearted individuals, while here we have a lower quality of goodness. In ancient times, beings of lower quality gradually evolved into those of loyal, medium quality. Now, as beings of higher quality, disasters are becoming more frequent, filled with greed, anger, ignorance, and arrogance. This is true, not false. If greed, anger, ignorance, and arrogance reach a breaking point, this universe will be destroyed. So the purpose of education in ancient China was to prevent the expansion of your evil thoughts. So you say that Chinese people have been taught to yield and be tolerant since ancient times. They are taught to be patient, humble, and courteous. I didn't mean for you to compete. As for competition, improvement is a struggle, and when struggle escalates, it becomes war. Someone wishes to seek your advice on this matter.
So what if it was before May, before the earthquake? Couldn't we directly communicate this disaster information to the public through the media? No, we can't.
Why is that? The public says you are spreading misleading information. It could have a counterproductive effect. So in this situation, we can only encourage our fellow students of Buddhism. We all need to cultivate a kind heart. To eliminate evil and cultivate goodness, to break through confusion and attain enlightenment, one must start from within oneself. By protecting oneself, one also protects the country, and thus the external disasters will be alleviated. This national protection ritual is aligned with this purpose. Indeed, we see that there are too many disasters around the world, so we hope that all students from Jinzhong in the world can join together at the same time, with our hearts and efforts united. This power will be significant. Not only to resolve this local issue, but we hope to alleviate disasters around the world.
I understand. If there's information, I'll share it. There was information saying that in the past, before the 921 earthquake in Taiwan, you had also mentioned to some people in Taiwan that a major earthquake might occur. Later, the media attacked you, and after the earthquake, many people were awakened. I am starting to re-evaluate Professor Jinkong and gain a new understanding of Buddha's teachings. So now a question arises within the Buddhist community. We know, it seems, divination, fortune-telling, and similar practices are not permitted. So how should the general public view this? What are your reminders or warnings to everyone regarding this?
This thing needs to be restored to its essence. The essence is education. So fundamentally, it must be affirmed. Human nature is inherently good. This is true, not false. Lack of goodness is due to having learned bad behavior. Not being good is a habit. So this is like what Mencius says about doing good, and what Zunzi says about doing evil. What Mencius speaks in the heart is not what Confucius speaks. The father-son relationship says the idea that human nature is inherently good. The mountain that Mencius speaks of is the mountain of habits, not of inherent nature. The goodness of inherent nature is not the same as the goodness of moral good and evil. Inherent nature has no good or evil. Good and evil are relative, while nature is absolute. That is called pure and pristine. Alas, that is true wisdom, and goodness is the real, ultimate completeness. So how can a person return to their true nature? If they are not confused, they would not have come to the human world. By the time they arrive in the human realm, they are already lost. Then education is essential. So, the people of China understand education the best. I understand the importance of education and the methods of education. The effects of education have been felt for thousands of years. This is something we cannot harvest. We cannot say that our ancestors were completely ineffective. They were not completely ineffective. They have managed to pass down their lineage for 5,000 years, and today we are still doing quite well in the world. This is all thanks to the virtues of our ancestors, and we must not forget their grace. Then you have made a mistake. That will lead to great disasters in the future. Why is that? You have already forgotten your roots. This is a very important matter, so we must believe in it. Trust in the wisdom of our ancestors and their teachings. As long as you follow their guidance, you will never go wrong.
So when it comes to this reminder, for the general public, it can be said to be a means of alleviating suffering and difficulties. Some people say it is prediction, and I have a question for you. Let me read you a passage from a Buddhist scripture. The Kitigarbha Bodhisattva is mentioned in the Kitigarbha Bodhisattva Sutra. It states that if one encounters those who kill, a vegetarian diet causes a short life. The consequence of killing is that your life will be very short, and there will be disasters in this lifetime. If a thief is driven by poverty and suffering, then if he steals, his consequence will surely be poverty and suffering. I would like to ask you, is this a prediction? No, this is British education.
What kind of causes are you planting? You will reap results. This is definitely not a prediction. This is the truth. This lesson is what I often talk about. Circumstances change with the mind. So you understand this general principle, you just need to keep a good heart. I often mention the 4 principles of speaking well, doing good deeds, and being a good person. I speak these 4 sentences, which were proposed many years ago. As long as a person adheres to these 4, your life will be very happy and fulfilling, even if you encounter many disasters.
Then the general public can understand that your repeated reminders to avoid these disasters. In fact, causal education. This education is not about prediction. It is not about prediction.
So do you understand what ethics is? It refers to the relationships between people, the relationship between humans and nature, and the relationship between humans and the entire universe. Today, we can focus on the relationships between people. I don't know, but the relationship between humans and nature, as well as the universe, all belongs to ethics. You understand this principle. Understanding how to handle affairs and interact with others is important. Therefore, China has proposed 12 characters related to morality: filial piety and brotherly respect, loyalty and trustworthiness, propriety, righteousness, integrity and a sense of shame, benevolence, peace. If we can align our thoughts, words and actions with these 12 principles, we will never go astray. Society is harmonious, the world is harmonious, and the universe is harmonious. Then add that the United Kingdom understands the United Kingdom. People do not dare to walk with me. Why is that? They say I have my own ambitions. Good deeds bring good results, and bad deeds bring consequences, which is why one should understand ethics, cultivate good actions and be ashamed of bad ones. Do you understand causal education? If so, you would not dare to commit wrong actions. China's 5,000 years of long-term stability relies on the popularization of education. Elders P.
So, based on the principles you mentioned, can I conduct such an experiment? For example, I am a high school student. Well, I have learned about education from the United Kingdom, and I can apply it in my life. Yes, I see my dad harming living beings, and I need to tell him that, Dad, this behavior leads to a short life. If not, our family will face disasters. And when I see my mum taking advantage of others, I say to her, Mum, if you encounter a thief, tell them that poverty and suffering will lead to a future of great hardship. Saying this to me is certainly not a prediction, as it is a principle. Am I able to do this? Yes, then the family will be auspicious.
After talking about it at the auspicious family, they will definitely prosper. Why is that? The doctor who does not steal. Those who do not kill will gain great wealth and also enjoy a long life.